All right, hello everybody, and welcome to our review for Star Trek Picard, Episode 5, Stardust City Rag. Welcome if you're listening live or after the fact. Glad you're here. Don't forget to slam that like button. And, why? Whoops, sorry about that. I had the stream on in the background and it started playing through. Hearing my own voice in my own head. Scary stuff. Hi, Saib, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's a good morning.
Good. It's actually afternoon, but
Yeah, afternoon. That's what it meant.
so
Morning for me. Okay.
yeah, I thought this week's episode was pretty good. It now there's some heart wrenching stuff in it if you are a massive Star Trek fan. We see some previous characters that don't all have happy endings. So yeah, so you said it was difficult for you to watch, but overall pretty good episode.
Yeah. No, it was a very good episode. I will contend that this is not traditional Star Trek. And we're really seeing this. But as I've stated before, I think we have to see this for them in order for them to get back on track, because Starfleet, as I said, is this massive wounded thing. It's been 20 years. They've had this enormous war. It did not go good for them. It nearly crushed them. And that leaves a scar, and war always leaves a scar. Um, Sometimes it is a fuel for change, but there is always a scar left afterwards.
Yeah,
So, yeah, no, I and Apsaro in the chat, you're not the only one with that opinion. There's a lot of people who think Picard sucks because they there's a lot of people who were expecting it to be one thing, and this is now. I mean, let's face it, it's not really Star Trek. It's The Expanse, or what was that other one? Dark Matter.
no, it's a
like
different kind of show set in the Star Trek universe, and honestly, this is
yeah.
more what I was expecting. And this past episode, like this one, episode 5, is
Hmm.
probably closest to what I was expecting before the show began its run. This is kind of what I was envisioning. This kind of a thing. Picard in space, going on clandestine missions, trying
Hmm.
to figure out what's going on, and trying to accomplish things. This is so I
Uh,
really
uh,
liked this
yeah.
episode. I guess partly for that reason. But this is probably my favorite episode, about tied with the season premiere.
I wanna refute Appy in the chat again. Says it's Disney Star Trek. It's not Disney Star Trek. Because they had a brutal scene that would never have ended up in any like Star Wars, or I mean Disney movie. And then they had a thing that we're going to talk about later on, where a hero gets vengeful revenge on a person. And again, you do not see this in Star Wars. Star Wars, Disney movies. You never see
Well,
this
Star
in
Wars is
Disney
in
movies.
Disney, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but I was meaning to say Disney directly, because it's not something that Disney is okay with. Disney is not okay with the hero being villainous. Like, they look at there's some things that they have to take on, and then there's other things that they accept through whatever. But it's like a hero to Disney is a hero that they fight everything with love, except when they can't.
Except when
and
they
and
don't.
then
I don't know.
yeah.
It's weird though, because I mean, they did do the Pirates of the Caribbean series, and Jack Sparrow's definitely kind of an anti-hero in that.
Yeah, but I mean, that's also been a little bit of a different. It's okay if the bad guy, you know, uh, ends themselves by happening to, what's the word? It's like it's Disney believes that it's okay for the villain to die if they kind of like bring it on themselves, or if like they're the ultimate baddie, that kind of thing. Um, but this is not. I would not say that this is Disney character development, because you know w- and again, it's mostly due to what Seven did near the end of the
Yeah,
episode.
I agree with that, but man, all those
Mm-hmm.
lens flares though.
Yeah,
I'm like
lots of lens
J.J.
flares
Abrams.
and
Get your fingerprints
and,
off
and
this.
again, Appy, I want to make it absolutely clear that this is not the Picard that I would have made. This is not the approach that I would have gone in. It would have been a little bit similar, but a fair bit different, I think. And I think most Star Trek fans, like, we talk about how how Seth MacFarlane has been wanting to buy out Star Trek for a very long time, and that he's quite eager to do that. And how I think after having watched, like at first I was like not sure, right? I was like, no, I don't think this is, a good idea when I first originally heard it many years ago. But then when he launched the Orville, I've got to say, he made me a believer that he has the capability of doing a vision that actually brings Starfleet into a more like traditional mindset for what Starfleet is. And again, it's not because I don't think that the Picard is necessarily a bad show at the moment. They haven't done anything that's horrible. They've done things that I don't like, that I don't agree with, that's like I consider off the track. But again, it's a decent enough show that my interest is still okay with it, and I'm still watching, even though I was really horrified by this episode.
All right, I want to go through a few of the chat messages here. Jolan True, Funky Moin, welcome back again. We've read some of Apsaro's messages here. And hello, Shua82, welcome. No need for me to, says, I don't know, I'm just bored with it. Plus the continuity is all over the place. Fill us in on some details of that if you can, about what continuity errors you've noticed. I haven't picked out any. I'm not the hugest Trekkie in the world, and I haven't seen. Like I'm still working my way through Voyager, and so I do know some of Seven of Nine's history now, but Enterprise was, or not Enterprise. Next Generation was my show. Funky Moin says, would you say that this is not Star Trek TV show like, but would be a good Star Trek like long movie? I think that it's a different type of Star Trek show. Honestly, like most of Star Trek focuses on a ship or a station, Starfleet. This is outside of Starfleet. This is outside of ranks and duty calls, and this is more sort of everyday. This is more ordinary people and some renegades living in the Star Trek universe. So I'm not surprised that it feels like a different kind of show. Just like you could have, you can have different kinds of shows that are all reality, sort of based in reality, but like a crime drama show is different from like a sitcom based around a family. Even though all of them are humans living on Earth, and so I feel like this is like we're seeing a different side of the Star Trek universe, and I kind of like that. Even though like I felt like the past two episodes were pretty lackluster. I didn't like what they were doing with Picard's character, but this episode, like I said, this is more what I was expecting from this show, and I really liked it. Kind of a Firefly feel to it within the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, I was gonna say this really does feel like, it feels like the Expanse and Firefly like put together.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I really do like that concept. Again, I want to see a return to traditional Star Trek, spaceship and fleet and all, fleet control, that kind of thing.
Well, that would be nice, but I never thought that's what this show would be, and so it kind of surprises me when people, some people are saying, oh, I thought this was going to be more like the old shows. Like, no, I mean, this is named after a character in the show. It's not named after the ship. It's not named after the station.
Yeah, but they're telling this story of a character who I mean, he is at the end of his life. In the show, and in the both in the show and then also in real life, obviously. And we've heard rumors. I've heard rumors. It's not confirmed, but I've heard rumors that they have recorded Picard's death scene already,
Yeah,
just in case he dies in the middle of season 2 or whatever. Because they filmed season 1, that's done. Season 2 has been confirmed, and I think they're already starting on the process of that. And again, as far as like Star Trek, Star Trek universe goes, I mean, theoretically, it would be better if this bombed, because then Seth MacFarlane might actually be able to buy it, and then we might actually get a return to actual Star Trek. And I'm personally a fan of that. I'm in favor of that. However, there is some downsides to that as well. So
I still get a little bit of heebie-jeebies when you say Seth MacFarlane should buy Star Trek, but I mean,
have you watched the Orville?
No, it's on my list.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's on your list.
I'm exposed to lots of other Seth MacFarlane, like that's like the one Seth MacFarlane property I haven't seen, and
yeah. So Seth MacFarlane actually was on Star Trek several times as like a background character. As a minor
I know he's a big
here
fan, and I know that he
loves.
I believe that if he got it, like I believe that if he was in control, like I think he would treat the franchise with respect. But I also feel like I might see a lot of his personal ideologies creep in, and that might bother me. But
actually, no.
Anyway, I mean, we're talking about like hypothetical. Let's get back onto the. Let's get back onto talking.
I feel that we need to recover a little bit of this ground each time we do this episode.
Yeah, we need to,
because the show is so it's a really jarring for some people, and I don't want to sound like a fanboy because I'm not. I'm accepting that the show is right now pretty decent, but not what I would have done. But then again, I understand that there's a million different versions of what people would want or expect, and that a lot of people are not happy that there 1 million versions of it, and all the other fans, that those aren't happening. But if you picked anybody, like if you picked the most Star Trek fan ever and gave them control of the show, a big majority, if not the same amount of people, would be unhappy with that show. And this is what happens with fandoms, is that there's no way to please everybody. So, why try?
Well, yeah, if you took 10 Star Trek fans and said, what is Star Trek? They'd probably all say different things.
Yeah.
Like, there'd be some overlap, or if you ask them, if you were to create your own Star Trek show, what it would be, you'd get radically different things.
Yeah, and so now, Funky, to answer your question, the question of am I actually enjoying the show? We wouldn't be doing this if we weren't actually enjoying the show. Like if the show goes sideways and it becomes a train wreck, I mean, we're going to call that out, and then the show will become less, generally respectful of like, let's just give it a chance to, hey, let's mock the thing that's burning like a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
We will easily transition to that if it really seriously goes off the rails. But right now we're looking at it like we're looking at, any new sci-fi show, like, Altered Carbon, The Expanse. We're looking at that going, okay, we're going to watch this, but because it does have Picard in it, and there's that extra connotation, and frankly, I was not going to watch the show until I heard that Seven of Nine was returning as a major character in the show. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, okay, that actually got me in. And just let's do a quick brief thing on that. There were some people who were like, why are they bringing in 7 to 9? How would she know Picard? That doesn't make any sense at all. She's just some random person on this Voyager ship. Why would she encounter Picard? Well, again, there's not that many people in Starfleet that have been rescued from the Borg. There's just not. So yes, when she got back to Earth at the end of the season, at the end of the series for Voyager, of course she would have met Picard. Picard probably reached out to her right away, because he probably was reading about how, Voyager returned. Every captain every single captain in Starfleet knew what was going on with Voyager after they made contact with them again, and every single one of them had heard about what was going on. And then there was this giant, sphere that came out, and Voyager destroyed it in front of an entire fleet. So it's like this is not some small event. Everybody would have been talking about this, and then Picard would have found out that there's Borg on the ship. I mean, they have an actual like Borg section on Voyager, and at that point they had several Borg members, like ex-members, like had been through the ship. I mean,
Former
it was
Borg, yeah.
like, yeah, there had been several of them at that point. And the foremost expert on the Borg at that moment, right before Voyager arrived in the back in the Alpha Quadrant, the most expert, the best expert to know and have studied the Borg was Picard. Basically, because I mean he was Locutus and he was more familiar with them than anybody else. Sure, there are people who studied it more, but he was kind of like the foremost expert. And that was until Janeway got there. Now Janeway and 709 are the foremost experts on the Borg, because Janeway understood them on a completely different level, and so did 709. And these were like, if you wanted to like talk about combating the Borg, at this point you would get Janeway, 709, and Picard into a room, basically. And I'm sure that actually happened more than once. Like following the like, all right, what is to be expected from the Borg? Are they going to retaliate, or were they destroyed, or all this stuff, and that would have involved them. So it's that kind of like that's the thing why it's important for her to be here, if they're dealing with the Borg at all, right? If they weren't dealing with the Borg, then she deserves kind of like a secondary like mention. But because they're dealing with the Borg cube, because they're dealing with a bunch of this other stuff, yes, it makes total sense. And again, as I've said before, I think she's like my absolute favorite character. So
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we get
So
to
anyway,
see her do. We get to see her
little
quite a
little
bit in
bit
this
of
episode,
background.
and she kicks some butt, which is pretty awesome. All right. Well, let's go. Let's start going through the episode. Please do keep your comments coming. We'll read a bunch of them as they catch our eye as we're going through this. So we have here the Seven Domes, and this is 13 years before the start of the series. Interesting looking place. I don't know. Has this appeared before?
No. This is just some planet.
Just some random place.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. The Seven Domes. I don't know. I like that concept. But anyway, so it starts off with 7 of 9 rescuing Icheb. So he's been captured by these people who harvest Borg implants and Borg technology, and we see in the next shot some of that their laboratory. But they've been absolutely horrible. They don't even anesthetize their victims. They don't kill them. They extract the technology and implants and things while they're still alive. For what reason, I can only imagine, but it definitely, like, it must be easier to extract stuff when their patients are not conscious. I don't know.
Yeah, I found that insulting, just generally. Like, I mean, I guess at some point they get, they're prepared, I guess, for it, but it's like you never want to like.
Yeah, it's like you have to be real messed in the head to be okay with doing that.
Well, I mean, not just that, but I mean, it's like to work on somebody who's conscious is so like volatile. You don't know what they're capable of.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
this is just a general thing, and I you don't honk at somebody on the street. You don't road rage on somebody because they cut you off. I mean, sure, you can honk at them and say learn to drive, buddy, but you don't like follow them home, because you don't know what they're capable of. They could be more crazy than you are on any given day, and you just don't know it. And so why these people would be doing this on him while he was conscious is really like, that's a break in the logic for me. It's like, and like
It doesn't seem to make much sense.
yeah.
So I mean, unless there is some reason for it that maybe they just don't want to spend the money on the
Yeah.
anesthetic. I don't know.
And I mean, here's another thing. Like, this scene was pretty brutal, and I'm glad that you didn't show any of the like the really
Well, I'm not going to
terrible
show the
bits.
really gruesome stuff, but yeah, it
Yeah,
was pretty
but it
gruesome. Yeah.
was really gruesome, a little bit too much for me. But at the same time, he's there and he's like dying apparently, and like, despite the fact that they have amazing medical technology, they can basically like revive a person. I mean, 7 of 9 revived Neelix after 17 hours of him being dead at one point. And I continue to point this out, especially in the first episode. Like, dude got stabbed in the heart, and apparently he's instantly dead. Like again, with the technology that they have, unless brain death has occurred, like, and has been like that for several minutes, there's no reason why you can't, like, I mean, you can't resuscitate somebody. Like, you could take a head that's been decapitated from a body and it's still technically alive for 5 minutes. And you're telling me that they don't have the technology to, like, okay, let's get some blood infusion going here and like hook this up, and then okay, then we'll integrate it with their body and like just resuscitate it. Like, I think medical technology at this point is not treated with the with the general, what it's supposed to be. I like Joss Whedon's point on this. It's like, they cut off one of the main characters' ear in the show, and they're like, they get it hours and hours after it's been cut off, and they're like, hey, just put this in stasis so that we put it back on him when he gets back. It's like, that's how far medical technology has come, is that the doctor in which isn't even close to Star Trek level, but in Firefly, the doctor is medical technology has come so far that they can take an ear that's been cut off a person's body for maybe even a day, and like, oh yeah, we can then reattach it just fine. Like, no problem at all. It's like, dude gets his eye plucked out, and apparently he's a goner.
Well, I think the
I mean,
implication
yeah,
is
I
that
think
they've
they
done
did
more.
more. Yeah,
I mean, they might
but
have. The thing is going to be attached to his brain, and they just extracted it without much regard for whatever. And
if I were them in this scene, I would have had them had already basically like split his torso in half or whatever, and then he was just sitting there like, and he was clearly not going to make it. That would make more sense than dude lying on the table. First and only wound you really see on him, specifically, is his eye, and then like, oh no, I'm dead. It's like, but again, we know that this is a fairly low budget show. And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is seriously a low budget show. So
Funky Moin says, I think
surprise.
it's to establish the tone of the episode. Yeah,
Yeah.
very
No,
much
no,
so. And also,
but
Shua82 says, I think it's to show that they view the former Borg as less than human, which, yes, apparently a lot of people in this universe do.
yeah, and that's crazy for me. Like, I just don't understand how. I mean, if the Alpha Quadrant had been ravaged by the Borg, like absolutely ravaged by the Borg, I could get that. Like, I could understand the mentality for that. But like, how somebody's like, oh yeah, I got Borg parts in me, and then people are just standing there going, well, you're subhuman, or you're whatever. Like, you're a subconscious species. I don't know how to say it, but like, how they didn't develop racism off of that is mind-boggling, considering that, okay, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So,
Well, there is a great deal of hatred for the Borg, and I mean, I guess some people will look at
yeah,
it like,
but I mean,
like,
but again, it's
oh,
like
once
they were,
Borg, you're always Borg.
yeah, but like, they weren't ravaged by the Borg. Like, as far as we know, they had some like back and forth stuff. A couple battles here and there. They were basically being probed by the Borg, and like, the Borg didn't show up and assimilate anybody's home system. Like, that never happened in the series up till, in the Alpha Quadrant, really. So how or why there's so much hate for them when there's a bunch of other species that are just as bad. Like,
Well, I don't think that. I don't think it's a zero-sum thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
all right.
This is one minor thing.
But this is
especially
Icheb, and part of that, this is
Mhm.
central to the theme of the episode, because this is a character from Voyager. So 709 has a history with him. She views him as family. She even calls him his. She calls him her child in this scene, and she's devastated by his death here, and like she actually shoots him, and that's part of the puzzling thing, is that apparently like he wants to die, and I guess for some reason they can't revive him. We just see some of the harvesting of Borg tech here. We've got somebody's head completely taken off. Funky Moin says, well, since Q took the Enterprise to the Borg were seen by Starfleet as an immense threat. They were. I mean, yeah.
Immense threat is different than, like, well, it's like...
Well, the concept, though, of a... I could see the concept, like, even if they're not at your front door, people are hearing stories, they're hearing rumors, and, of course, your imagination amplifies everything.
And, of course, it's a scary thing. And, again, it's more scary in, like, I've mentioned the online game a lot, but the online game, like it's a legitimate thing. Like, that's the thing that you wake up to, is basically this massive Borg invasion, and the Borg have, like, become, like, even more inhuman, and they just, like, they mow through, entire systems, and that was a thing that united the whole, like, Alpha and Beta Quadrant to fight this menace, this growing menace that had appeared out of nowhere. And it's like, yeah, well, that's that's something to be feared, but that didn't happen here. Instead, it's like, you mean the Borg? You mean they snatched up a couple of colonies like some odd years ago, and then they
I don't think that what you're describing would be necessary for certain people to have immense prejudice against former Borg. I mean, people, not everybody is completely rational. You got to remember that.
Yeah. But anyways.
So Icheb's Funky Moin makes an interesting statement here. Icheb's episode where he sacrificed his cortical node to save Seven is a very empathic episode. They actually reference that here when she's operating on him after she pulls his eye out. The lady is looking for his cortical node and can't find it, and then 709 busts in. Kind of poetic, actually. All right, here's the villain of the episode, Bjayzl. I keep that sounds so hick and redneck to me. Oh, it's Bjayzl. Anyway, on Free Cloud, and she hears from her henchman here, Mr. Vup, that Bruce Maddox is there. Yeah, wear your node. I know. Bruce Maddox has apparently been in hiding on Free Cloud. He's come out of hiding because the Tal Shiar have destroyed his lab, and so he comes to her for help, and and here's Bruce Maddox. So we see him for the first time here. Not the same actor that portrayed him on The Next Generation, but they got a guy that looked, I don't know, to me he looks like, yes, he could be an older version of the previous actor. So, plus they had him grow, they have a beard on him and stuff. So, yeah.
Well, one thing I want to point out, so the original actor that played him in Star Trek, he's not acting anymore. So it's like, I mean, maybe they could have been like, hey, when I come back for this one scene, it'll be really awesome. Yeah. So
Funky Boy says she looks like Deanna Troi, but very, very young. You know what? Okay, so I watched this episode with my mom, and she was convinced that it was the actor that played Deanna Troi. Even after I looked it up, and was like, no, it's somebody else. She was convinced. That's pretty funny. But yeah, there is definitely a resemblance. But I don't think they would do that, especially since we do know. Well, I don't know. This might be considered a spoiler, but it is out there that we are going to be seeing her at some point. We're going to be seeing Deanna Troi. All right. So yeah, Bruce Maddox says, he tells her, I think the Tal Shiar destroyed my lab. And then Bjayzl's like, oh, I could make a deal with the Tal Shiar and give turn over Bruce Maddox to them. So she poisons him, and like it doesn't kill him, but like it sort of incapacitates him, so she can capture him with that magical orange juice there, which is I can't remember what it's called, but apparently it's a reference to an original series episode. Okay, now we're in modern day. Yeah, I watched Star Trek with my parent. You envy that? I've been watching Star Trek with my mom since I was a kid. We watched Star Trek Next Generation all the time. So when Picard came out, I was like, yeah, whenever she's available, I go over there and watch the episode with her. Can't every week, but yeah, it's good. So back to modern day. Well, we were back to modern day in the previous scene, but this is 7 of 9 aboard the ship with Picard. They're talking about what she's doing there, what he's doing there, all of this stuff. The details of the conversation are a little fuzzy. Yeah, Picard does some of his moralizing again, which is kind of getting annoying, but he does kind of acknowledge, because she's part of this ranger group, which he kind of views them as vigilantes, and he's like, to appoint yourself, judge and jury, and you're taking the law into your own hands. And she's like, well, what law? And he's kind of sits back and is like, okay, good point. So he kind of gets it, I guess.
Again, he's hypocritical, and I've always found Picard to be rather hypocritical. It's like, oh no, we can't do this unless I want to. we can't save a species from total annihilation. Well, unless we want to. We can let an entire species die because their planet's dying. But then some guy goes against the rules and saves some of them, and then one of them commits suicide, and now I'm heartbroken because now we can't get to know their species. It's like, you just it's constant contradiction, and he has a habit of doing this all the time, and especially in this, like, this again highlights it. It's my one thing that I hate from the original show is, like, especially how hypocritical Jean-Luc is. Like, there's many times where he'll trap somebody out for how dare you waste our time or do things that you're not supposed to when you're supposed to be doing something else. It's like, stick to your duty, sir. It's your duty to do this. But then he goes off on these wild things whenever it pleases him. It's like, I mean, I guess captain's prerogative, I guess. I guess once you get up there. But then he doesn't respect other captains. Like, he's notorious for not respecting other captains. And it's like, okay, right. Now, again, I think that's good character flaws that are built into a character and can actually make you debate and argue that. So I think that's fine, right? But it's like when there is no, like, he understands that there's no actual law in the neutral zone. There is no law. Starfleet's not there. They don't have, like, a lot of these places don't have, like, an elected official. How do I say that? Official? No.
Official?
Whatever. They don't have an official law, like, body that, like, is implementing stuff. They certainly can't hold some people accountable, and again, it's like, it's so law is what you make of it. And then he's all like, well, you can't do that. It's like, well, who's gonna stop it? Plus, again, this coming from a guy who shows up on that one, like, moon world or whatever it is, where it's like there's colony that they're doing things that are technically illegal, and he's like, well, we can't interfere with them because that's that they're self-ruling themselves. It's like, the Rangers are self-ruling themselves in their districts too. Like again, it's so hypocritical. It drives me mental.
Well, it is. I mean, at least he does kind of acknowledge, well, you're right, there is no actual law in place, and so what else can you do? And I am okay with. I do appreciate that they're playing him as a flawed character. By the way, Funky Moin, yes, we do know the name of the ship. It's called the La Sirena. Sirena. The La Sirena. Sirena or Serena or something like that. All right. So anyway, they talk about why Picard is there, because she's curious, and he explains the situation, and Seven is interested in helping out. She's like, get me another bourbon. So so she agrees to help, and then cut to some other stuff going on around the ship. We got Raffi here looking up this individual, who we find out later is her son that she's tracking down, and that's the reason she's going to Free Cloud. And then Captain Rios comes out and is like, "Oh yeah, Seven's in the chateau with Picard, because he's got his chateau in the holodeck simulator." And what are they talking about? And she's ex-Borg. Oh, and I keep forgetting he's ex-Borg, and he's like, some strange cargo you brought me this time. Interesting conversation. I kind of like the dynamic between these two characters. They work well together.
I like how much he likes Seven.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, she's a Borg drone. Oh, and she's from the Delta Quadrant. Oh my goodness, and and he just goes on this tirade. It was actually
because she's apparently really infamous. Okay, then cut to Dr. Girardi watching an old hologram video that she took of Bruce Maddox doing some cooking. Kind of interesting, because this is actually, this reminds me of a scene in The Next Generation where Riker is cooking, and Data is questioning the the efficiency of it, and the Senate why not just use the replicators? Riker's cooking breakfast.
Right, he's actually I love the way he described it. He's like, and the way she reacted to it, she's like, and then you burnt it?
Then you burn them to a crisp. You mix it all together, you burn it to a crisp. Why not just replicate chocolate chip cookies? He doesn't like the chocolate chip cookies that the replicator makes, apparently, so he's making his own. And then we find out, they're a little more than just working companions.
They're a couple, and I swear, looks like I've just pointed it out that he kind of looks like a teacher, she kind of looks like a student, and that's still a no-no. It's like, that's still illegal, guys. That's the impression I got.
Colleagues. They both work at the research, the artificial life research place.
This looked like it was many years ago. To me, that's what it kind of looked like.
It doesn't look much. Again, it's not like
it's just.
I think you're reading too much into that.
Yeah, well, it immediately reminded me of that I didn't watch Friends, but there was one scene that I've caught on YouTube where I don't even know who it is. It's the tall, lanky guy who, if you could kill the soundtrack and you just watch the show without there being a laugh track, he's clearly insane and very unhinged. Anyways, he goes to this. He's a teacher at a university or something like that, and he shows up and he's like, I just wanted you all to know that I'm teaching my student, and we don't care what you all think. And they're like, yeah, that's illegal. He's like, wait, what do you mean it's illegal? It's like, yeah, that's illegal. He was like, I thought it was just frowned upon, or it was just no, that's actually illegal. You can't do that.
I think the student was one of the actresses from Buffy. Anyway, doesn't matter. We're not here to talk. But yeah, that was weird. That whole arc where he's dating a student. Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, it could be, but Funky Moin's saying he recruited her out of her studies. I mean, that's possible. But I mean, if it's...
I remember that. See, I remember that too. There was some mention about how she was a former student of his, and how he had recruited her.
But a former student is different than a current student.
Maybe they're of the sort where they don't really mind that anymore. I'm just like, whatever. But whatever it is, it was kind of a little like, oh, okay, interesting.
Well, whatever. All right. Okay, so this is where the episode gets cyberpunk AF, and I love it.
I did like this next little bit.
He clearly is way older. Yeah, I'm not going to argue that he's a fair bit older than she is, but anyway, doesn't matter. All right, so yeah, they get to Free Cloud and suddenly start getting spammed with all these holographic ads, which is hilarious. And so like this ad pops up as like, "Hi, Captain Rios, your whatever something efficiently is only like 91%. You should stop in at the Red Bullion and we'll fix it." And Seven Myth says, "This felt completely unlike Trek to me." You know, that's it did, but again, this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the stream here. It's kind of, we're seeing a different side of the Star Trek universe that we didn't really see before. First of all, like we're far away from Earth. We're far, this is outside of Starfleet. It's,
I don't believe that this is outside of normal Star Trek, because even the starships, Voyager, multiple times. I mean, you had a whole character was built around it in DS9, but then in even the TNG, they were occasionally spammed with people trying to sell them stuff.
That is true. They actually actually I'll save it for later, but they reference another Star Trek character later on in the episode. But yeah, like these ads are hilarious. So, and then this one, join the party at the whatsoever something hotel.
Yeah.
And then this robot, this Rock'em Sock'em robot, starts beating on Dr. Jurati, and they're like, "You gotta hit him back," and she's like, "I don't hit things," and it's a really funny scene, and she punches the robot's head off.
Yeah. And I mean, again, she's a little sheltered, so it kind of makes sense to do this.
Yeah, no, it fits her character. And then this guy, you're looking to get snake bit?
Yeah.
Oh, it was so funny. And then Elnor, I didn't get one. Oh, this was such a great scene.
At first, I was like, "Well, he's really not talking. I guess they just didn't write dialogue." Oh, it's so funny now. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so Raffi does her Deus Ex Machina magic here, and can find everything about what Bruce Maddox is up to, and so he's been captured, and then she creates them some fake credentials as what are they called? These go-between people, facers, I think they're called. So people that basically organize contracts between different factions. They're like go-betweens, and they're like these flamboyant personalities that tend to be basically like pimps, kind of. And she mentions who's holding Bruce Maddox, and Seven of Nine overhears it, and suddenly she's eager to volunteer. So, turns out, well, she's got an ulterior motive, of course. Here's the view of the city, and
don't say.
Yeah. This is where it just gets super cyberpunk at this point. Just these holograms as you're going through the street, the giant dice and the giant, person.
I'd say
advertising.
That looks like there's a couple Ferengi running the place. I would say for sure.
Could be. That wouldn't be unlikely. So. Here's Captain Rios as his facer character, and it's funny as they're coaching him to be more flamboyant.
I feel that they've literally pulled these character archetypes straight out of Cyberpunk 2077. So this was actually a really nice tie-in, and I gotta say, actually looks really cool. So congratulations, yeah.
There is the Quark.
Oh, there is a Quark sign.
Yeah, you see it. It's just to the right of center there. The K is hidden behind.
Oh my! I totally missed that. That's amazing.
This is the first of two Quark references in this episode.
I wonder if he's here or if it's now a franchise. Like, wow! Imagine if it was a franchise and he's spread all over that would be so cool.
They do. They do mention him. They do mention Quark later. They're cutting back and
Again,
forth
it's
here
supposed to be sad.
between. It's sort of becoming a trademark of mark of this series to be cutting back and forth between the planning and the actual execution of something, which is a neat way to do it. I really like it. But Elnor, he's having trouble figuring it out because he's like he doesn't get that they're pretending to be other people. At first, he's super confused. Of course, he's been raised with the way of absolute candor, so that just doesn't make sense to him. This dude with the holographic angel wings, I was like, wow. Like, yeah, it's like, feels like whoever wrote this was a Cyberpunk fan. And, oops. This is a meme-worthy shot if I've ever seen one. He orders a drink and he's like, turns back around, he's like, with 2 umbrellas. This, I think this might become a new emote on our server, or if it doesn't become a meme, that'll be a shame if this doesn't become a meme.
Actually, I'm gonna let our artist know that this is something I want her to do right now.
Turn this into a meme. Yeah, that would be great. So, yeah, some cool stuff. Here's Mr. Vup. Oh, mute your microphone, dude. Yeah, so here's Mr. Vup again, and he confronts Rios. And now, apparently, whatever species Mr. Vup is has an extremely acute sense of smell and is able to smell when someone's lying, and also what they had for breakfast and who they slept with. They make a big deal of mentioning that. So
I thought for sure I had muted my microphone. I'm so sorry about that. I'm like face palming really hard over here, harder than Picard has ever face palmed.
That's pretty hard. Yeah. So anyway, they've given Rios this hypo injection, which is like going to help him counteract whatever smells he gives off if he tells a lie, and it just happens to kick in right as he needs it, and that's this actor's got a good stoned face. So
yeah, like he's like suddenly like, all right, like he's channeling Matthew McConaughey right now. Like,
well, I'm impressed with his. He's had the holograms were starting to bug me, but they didn't add any new ones this time. So they.
Oh yeah, they did. They added the psychologist.
No, that was the regular EM. That was the regular EMH.
Well, I was really pissed about that scene, so I'll get into that when I get.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another. I think Eye Patch Picard needs to become a meme. Especially making this face that he makes here, where he's like, what does he say? I can't even remember. But he's like hamming up this French accent. He's like, "Bar." I look,
and he looks so much like a villain. Like,
yeah.
It's really great. I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. So cool. Again, I understand some people are like, no, this isn't Picard. He would never do that. Like he went undercover multiple times.
Well, he went undercover, but he was in his he used
He's
to
also
do
a big
these
actor
Dick Tracy
thing.
Yeah, like he was very dramatic as a character, and like in his spare time he would do like detective holodeck programs,
so I
and
think
he'd really get
totally
into character.
within,
so
yeah, I think this is totally in proper continuity here. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think some people, somebody was hating on this scene. Another group of people who review this that absolutely despise the show, and they were like, "This is so stupid." And I'm like, "No, this is really, really normal. This is totally
we're talking
common.
about this after, or might have been before last week. It seems like there are a lot of people out there who seem to want to hate this show, and will pick it apart for everything, even things that really aren't issue. Like, it's not a perfect show, I think, like by far, but yeah, I mean, like, criticize it on its own merits, not on. Don't make stuff up, or speak out of ignorance. That's always cringy. Although I'm sure I do that on occasion. Here's the shot. Here's the scene where Elnor finally gets it. I love this. I love this look on his face. He's like, I get it. We're all pretending to be somebody else. And then he tries, and it flops.
Like he's so excited to learn something new. It's like we're all pretending to be somebody else. This is something brand new to him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's never like experienced this before, and everybody else is like normal day at the office.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, he does a little dance and says something in like Spanish or something. It's weird, and everyone's like, "Just stick to being Elnor." Yeah.
N7, you know, again, I think the show is good enough for the moment that it deserves to just be watched and have fun with it. I mean, there is so much that is. I mean, just this week we've had some more news within the industry, within the gaming industry, where like things are not good, right? In a lot of places, things are. It's not just that they're not good. It's not that they're just bad. It's that they're really bordering on the edge of actual, and I hate using this word because it's like it's overused, but there's actual things that border on evil, right? Like casinos for toddlers, because what else is good for anything to focus on than something like that, or Disney making games that encourage 5-year-olds to spend over $200 a month on video game, on just single app purchases. It's like this is really pushing close to pure evil, not to mention some of the other stuff that's going on. There's a couple of recent articles and stuff that have really come out, really showcasing the absolute degeneracy of some parts of our society. And when that happens, it's like you got to fight the good fight, but you also have to like take a moment to just breathe and be normal. So
yeah, and I think there's a risk. Like sometimes our entertainment is just needs to be entertainment, and I mean you can like it or dislike it. Yeah, it's a shame when everything gets over political, and then it seems like there are some people, some YouTubers, some critics who are fed up with things getting over politicized in our entertainment, but then they seem to be going too far the other way and seeing that where it doesn't exist as well, and being too critical or too nitpicky because of it, and it's unfortunate. So yeah, we're just trying to take the show as it is, giving you our honest opinions about it. Oh yeah, okay, this is where we were. So, Eye Patch Picard, bringing 7 of 9 to the villain, Bjayzl. And he really puts on a good show here. He's like, well, you are disgusting. You are, filthy beast. You're going to have... She was assimilated as a child. You're going to have to dice her up to get it all out. It was quite... it was... Oh, man, just... So much about this episode was so good, and I really liked the this character he puts on with the eye patch. And okay, cut to Raffi going to the she's tracked down her son to this reproductive health place, and anyway, there's this whole thing. I meant to grab a screenshot of them just talking, but she just kind of surprises him and says hi, and he's like, wow, really? You're just showing up here? And they have this talk, and he's mad at her because apparently she abandoned him and his father.
She put her work life in front of her home life. And apparently this kid is so what's the word? He's so much more important than any work thing that could ever be done. He sounds like a 5-year-old. I mean, I get, a parent who works too much and is barely home, and I get that. I really do. and I get that the difficulty that some families have with this kind of stuff. um, and a teenager's pain is always painful, right? Doesn't matter if it's just because they didn't get, they didn't get the right filling in their bubble tea, right? And it's the end of the world, and I mean it's real to them in the moment. And yes, you can laugh about it and you roll your eyes, but it's like it's for the moment, hormonal or whatever stuff is going on. It's like that's a legitimate thing, and you calm them down, and then you're like, this is really small fry stuff. You don't necessarily mock them or like, I mean, if you're a family member, if you're not a family member and you're just mocking them for the sake of mocking them,
You might want to get back onto your point here.
But my point is that this dude's an adult now, and he doesn't realize that his mother was working for Starfleet trying to save the entire Romulan species.
Well, no, because he thinks it's all a conspiracy and that she was crazy. Like they go through that, like.
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, at the same time, it's like dude needs to get an extra foot in reality here.
Well, but at the same time, though, like she straight up abandoned them and was apparently on drugs or something. Like one of the first things she says is that she's clean now, and
no, and again, I get it a little bit, but I think he was like if I were to see this in real life, like if I were to experience like somebody going through this, reacting this way to a parent who's like, I've cleaned up, I'm coming back, I'm trying to like do something better. It's like, you should always like, they're taking a foot forward, maybe try not to flip the table on them, which is literally what he did. Like,
right.
She's
I
like,
did find
hey,
his reaction a little over the top. It seems like
it was childish. It was childish at best, manipulative, and just as bad as she was apparently. Before that, he's mirroring that to an extreme extent right now, and he's also trying to be the good guy. He must be an insufferable person to live with.
I don't think I completely agree with that assessment. I do think that he obviously has some anger, but to completely reject her outright, like having not seen her in such a long time, unless his immediate outright rejection of her seemed a little much. Like you would think.
It seems to me
that if you were in that position, you'd be hoping this parent would come back and say, "Hey, I'm clean and I want to be part of your life."
Yeah, and I mean, my point is like, it's like when you. Like, it's not, yes, what she should have started with is like, hey, I hurt you, I'm really sorry. I don't think she actually like apologized, like said, like, look, I want you to forgive me. You don't need to do it right now, but I'm here to earn that forgiveness at some point. I want to be, do you want to see me once a month? Do you want to see me once a week? Do you want to see me like once a year, and just start with that? Is like what level of like, I hurt you, I'm sorry, can we get over it? Like if there's going to be healing, you have to throw a bone to for something like that. Like you just have to do that if you want to get over this kind of stuff. If somebody's putting a foot forward or reaching out a hand, it's like if you slap it away, I mean that speaks more about you than it does about, and I mean, and this is family. It's like if your boss was a piece of work to you, you've got no inherent need to forgive them, for being an absolute, whatever. But in this case, it's family, right? So family is like you gotta roll with it just a little bit more. You have to be willing to like, reach out a hand to family, because if you don't, then at some point in your future, somebody's going to react that same way to you, and it'll be justified, and that's not good. So that's just my moral.
It's hard to like. We have to backfill some of the story here. We don't know if they've had contact. We don't know if like she's done this before, or tried to reach out before, but then like was still hurtful, or if he's tried to reach out and like we don't know some of the backstory.
And maybe she's very resentful against Romulans, and the fact that he married a Romulan. Maybe that's what's going on here, and maybe she was maybe she was the racist person in the family, because I mean I've seen this too. sometimes fairly close, where it's like, well, you're marrying one of them, and it's really disgusting. And yeah, then you typically cut off the person. So I mean, whatever.
Well, but okay, but I mean, like,
And Seven, you're right. It's
he
a
is
plot
marrying
device.
he is marrying a Romulan, or he's married this Romulan and is having a child with her. And it seems like from your perspective, this must be some grand conspiracy to infiltrate and destroy the family. Given what you've said about all Romulans ever on previous episodes of this show.
All Romulans back then, I'm quite clear on the fact that all new Romulans that are under the age of 30 are going to have a brand new outlook on the universe.
You've
That
never said
wasn't
that, but also
there.
you haven't said that as far as I can remember. But we're also talking about only 14 years ago when the shipyards were destroyed and this evacuation was happening.
Yeah. Didn't you just hear what I said?
You said under 30.
Yeah, so if you were a child when that happened, below 18, then you're going to have a different view on life growing up. I don't understand how, again, behavior psychology must not be something you study in your off hours. I keep forgetting that this is not something.
I have a degree in psychology.
Right, advanced psychology then.
I have a degree in advanced psychology.
Okay, all right. Well, then you're not. I don't understand what you're not getting here. But anyways, let's move on.
You make too many generalizations. That's the point. Okay, so anyway, cut back to. I love this grin, Picard. He's so in character here. So yeah, he's anyway, he's continuing to turn her over, and once the villain sees her face, she of course knows who she is, because this villain Bjayzl is who was in charge of, or is still in charge of this Borg reclamation, not reclamation, but the harvesting of parts from former Borg. And she knows who 7 of 9 is. And 7 of 9 knows her, and that's why 7 of 9 volunteered for the mission. All right. Dr. Girardi is aboard the ship, freaking out because she's in charge of the transporter, running the transporter for this mission, and she's having massive anxiety about it. And then the emergency medical hologram just suddenly shows up because her heart rate's elevated and she's all anxious. Was this the part you wanted to talk about?
A little bit. So apparently this doctor, who's very smart and capable and well educated, has a panic attack when deciding how to hit a button when she's told to hit a button. I know this is the thing, but I don't understand how somebody can panic when you're like, okay, I need you to hit this button when I tell you to hit this button. And they're like, oh my god, I'm going to have and they go into an immediate anxiety attack because they don't know how to hit a button. It's like, it's not hard. You just have to hit a button. Again, it's one of these things where it's like, at first I was like, I don't think that this is within her character. But then by the end of the episode, I was like, okay, maybe I misjudged that a little bit early on. So
right, she clearly does, as Funky Moyne points out, the panic attacks because she knows stuff we don't know yet, which is true.
Yeah, and I didn't really realize that at first. I thought that she was just going to be this lucky go punky character that's just going to be there. I didn't realize that she was going to be a sleeper agent. So
yeah,
I was kind of like, oh, okay.
I didn't quite see it coming either, but somebody did. Somebody in our, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, somebody in the chat called it. So kudos to you, whoever that was. I don't remember, honestly. But yeah, I don't know. Transportation does seem like a simple thing. It does seem like you should just be able to hit a button, but on the other hand, we've seen in the past there's been Like, there's entire positions on starships
Yeah.
devoted to operating the transporter. So,
Yeah, but the other thing here that I don't really understand, and why I'm a little annoyed with this too, is apparently the dude has a hologram for everything on the ship, except for somebody who's really skilled at knowing how to operate the
there's
transportation
no
buffer.
emergency transporter hologram. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, to me it seems like, wait, so you got a dude who can materialize out of thin air to give somebody a consultation about how their quarters should look and how it should
The
feel.
hospitality hologram. Yeah.
You got a hospitality hologram, but you don't have a hologram to run a system that literally is the difference between life and death in severe situations, that is responsible for taking you on and off of a ship completely all the time. Like, there's no getting on or off the ship without a teleporter. And somehow you don't have a hologram for that. I'm a little surprised, I guess, that yeah, shocked maybe.
That is weird.
So
So
yeah,
Funky
wonky.
Moin says, remember her reaction in episode 1 when Picard asks if it's possible to create this type of cyborg or this type of android. The thing about that is, I'm not sure her plan to betray Picard goes back that far.
I
My
think
my impression is that it was when she had that meeting with Commodore O, who it's a brief scene in episode 2 or episode 3, and yeah, they don't show us what transpires during that meeting, but then she goes to see Picard and is like, you need to bring me with you on your mission. And I think that's where, like, I don't know what Commodore O told her or showed her, but I think that's what turned her. And so she clearly doesn't want to be in this position, but feels like she has to. Like, even at the end, like, she's not happy about the fact, like, she's devastated by the fact that she's, taking out Bruce Maddox. So yeah, we have a lot to find out still about what's going on, but yeah, I'm not sure it goes back to the first episode like that.
yeah.
But yeah, whoever called it that she was going to be, kind of a sleeper agent in this, kudos, because yeah, I didn't see that coming. She's just such a carefree character. So yeah, this so cut back to what's happening on the planet now. So then there's this confrontation, 7 of 9, and Bjayzl. I keep having to look at my notes to remember what her name is. Bjayzl.
Now again, for people who don't know, her left hand is capable of like crushing spinal columns. So
right, yeah. So like she grabs Bjayzl by the throat and tells everybody, because they've got their weapons trained on, like, Bjayzl's henchmen have their weapons out, and she's like, tell them to drop their weapons. So they do, because she could just
you can't shoot in this particular case. They can't shoot faster than Seven can crush her throat. Which again, I don't know how. Again, I don't know how she doesn't have this thing where, like, she can have her head transported to a medical facility and they can, as long as her head's still okay, they could survive. Again, I don't get it, but whatever. Okay.
Well, I mean, her whole body isn't cybernetic. She's got implants. Like, she's got certain parts.
I'm talking about Jay. I'm talking about Jay.
Oh yeah. But Jay's
How Jay is afraid of dying here. Again, seems a little weird to me, especially considering what we see more on later on in the episode. But I guess maybe this is just the way whatever works.
I think, like, it is possible. Like, there's always yes, you can resuscitate people in this universe who are dead. But I think
It's not only that. It's like how she doesn't have an emergency beam out. Like, we see this in the episode. As soon as weapon fire starts, some people, all they do is they just look up and they're gone. And it's because they have emergency teleports on themselves. So they have a trained teleporter on themselves. You panic, or if your heart rate goes up through the roof, or if you hear gunfire, it immediately activates the teleporter and you're out of there in like a fraction of a second. That happens to people later on in this episode. How she doesn't have that kind of a security, I don't know. I think it would be kind of cool if, Seven's like, don't bother trying to teleport up because we corrupted your satellite or whatever, right? Like that would make sense to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, but for whatever reason, she sticks around, and Mr. Vup has his secret weapon that he's about to use, and then Captain Rios shoots him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, okay, wait, I get it that you want revenge, but if you kill her, that's going to put a bounty on the heads of everybody here, and that's not a good idea. So let's think about everybody. But then he helps her out a little bit later in a pretty sly way. So they all beam back. Seven foregoes having her revenge right then, and they all beam back to the ship. Thanks, Evans and Seven Myth. Thanks for joining. We'll talk to you another time. So then Rios puts the pattern, this pattern enhancer that they needed in order to beam in and out. He just puts it down on the transporter console, and Seven of Nine picks it up.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of,
because he understands what's going on.
Yeah,
like he gets it. He gets it.
So Seven's like, well, I'm going back to my life as a vigilante ranger now. Can I borrow some phasers? And Picard's like, yeah, sure. And then she beams back down to Free Cloud and goes.
And here we have a
ballistic.
very, very important lesson. When somebody murders one of your family members, you don't let them live. Very important lesson here. You just, especially when there's not like, a law system in place. You don't let them get away with this, because, then they'll do it again. Or they'll do it to somebody else. So this is the very important lesson here that 709 teaches extraordinarily well. Really happy with this. I was like, they better not let her go. Like, seriously, she tortures people for a living. That's worth pulling the trigger for. I mean, I was just
this is another point where Picard's
not a Disney film.
Picard's moralizing kind of. He says, revenge is not justice, which is true. But at the same time, you've got this villain who's the head of the head of this organization that's just doing horrible things to people. And you just okay with letting her go? Like, yeah, I mean, it's. And I don't. Is this in Free Cloud? Does Free Cloud have its own law enforcement or anything like that? I mean, clearly.
Oh, I'm sure they have. Okay, so as far as I understand this, of course they have their own law system. However, she's above the law because she's this powerful person who controls a huge amount of money and stuff. She's basically an oligarch. So in this case, yeah, I mean, there's probably a legal system, to prevent, to investigate, crimes and stuff like that. But she's pretty much above that. There's nobody who's going to take her down, because again, she runs a couple of these big business type things. She apparently has a large amount of security. She's got huge investments. She's all about the money, right? Because she this is somebody who can entertain reneging on a deal with the Tal Shiar. If you have the ability to entertain the thought of reneging on the Tal Shiar, you're a very powerful person in general. So yeah, I would say that's kind of a what's going on here.
And yeah, actually, Funky Moyne points out an important thing. They do have that brief conversation before she beams back down about, did you ever feel like you regained all of your humanity? And Picard admits that no, he hasn't, or he doesn't feel like he feels like he's regained a good deal of it, but not all of it.
Shua, yes, the the weapons here. This again is something that I'm very happy to see because it always struck me as weird as how they used phasers and stuff like this in Star Trek. I always found it like, first of all, and again, they got no body armor, which I mean I can understand that. I do get that why they don't have like personal shields or like the holographic like shield type systems that they have in the online game. I mean, yeah, production cost and all that kind of stuff. Um, but why, how or why they only ever had like these like weapons that you had to do a sustained moment of fire and you had to stand out in the open, pointing the thing, and the fact that it never had any sights or targeting reticles or any of that kind of stuff, the fact that it couldn't really ever like rapid fire or have burst rounds or anything like that, why that wasn't in any of the like TNG. Okay, I get it. TNG, fine. Original Star Trek, understand there too. I guess. Uh, Voyager, I think maybe they had slowly increased some of the weapon systems there, but especially in like DS9, where they're fighting a war, and again, they're fighting a war, and people are like hiding behind rocks, doing the sustained weapons fire. It's like, it seems really weird. And again, they did have things like wide burst, like half like room wide things, and they did that every once in a while, and it was like pretty cool and kind of okay. But geez, when it came down to this, it's like it's.
I think that's one of those things where you just have to accept that this is Star Trek, and just move on. Like just.
Yeah,
at this point where you have to suspend disbelief.
My point is,
and be like,
my point is that I'm happy now that they do have these weapons and that they have upgraded with the time, because this scene was especially badass. Like this made pretty. I mean, I really was upset about the whole Ichib thing. I was like, wow, that absolutely sucks. Would have been so nice to have him. Like he's been in books, he's been in stuff before. I think he's even appeared in the game and some of the other stuff. So he's been there, but just to like kill him off in like a minute. I hope they have some flashbacks with him down the road or something. Like it's so frustrating. But in this particular case, it's like, yeah, he's like, okay, go nuts, Seven. Like, bring him down.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can't say I was unhappy with the outcome, which is Bezazel, sorry. That's why I have notes. Getting blasted into particulate matter. Yeah, and then Bejazel's secondary security team comes running in, and 7 of 9 goes ballistic on them, and that's the last we see of her in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But the dual wielding the SMG is pretty cool.
Yeah, but she's gonna be back because she's in a lot more of the episodes. So yay! Mm-hmm. And I even wonder if she's gotten back on the ship at some point. I don't know. Because he did put down that teleporter thingy. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he put it down and then she picked it up. That's how she got back down to the planet.
No, I thought she beamed down to the planet through just their regular beam down planet thingy.
Right, but they had to use this pattern enhancer dealie to. I can't remember the technical babble behind it, but anyway, the thing that Captain Rios put down on the console, she picked that up.
Yeah, no, I know that she picked that up. I thought that was so that they could teleport them back up to the ship, not teleport them down to the planet.
Well, maybe, yeah. So maybe she does use that later to get. Who knows? I don't really know. Anyway. Okay, so Dr. Girardi.
No. Again. There's a teleporter on the ship that can teleport you wherever you want to go.
Right.
It's once you're down there, that's what the pattern enhancer was for, was to make sure that they could get the people off of the planet onto the ship. It's not hard sending somebody from the ship down somewhere else. They're on the thing. They're on the platform that can send them anywhere they want to go. Down is not the problem. Up is the problem.
Well, I think beaming
that's
down,
what I'm saying.
if you're having a problem beaming up from a certain location, it follows that you'd have that same problem beaming down to that location.
No, they've never had this issue in the show before. They can always teleport to the location.
No, that is absolutely not
Return
true.
people in the snap of a button.
No, that is not
That's the
true.
problem.
That is not true. That's why they have to take shuttles in many cases because there's too much interference to beam down. There are so many episodes where they're like, there's too much interference to beam down. You know,
they don't go into the teleporter pad, set up a pattern enhancer on the teleporter pad to beam people down. They don't need a pattern enhancer to beam people to locations. They need pattern enhancers to beam people up from those locations. Yes, there's times where they can't teleport down, but that's not what's happening here. They don't have an issue teleporting down to a planet that's people live on. That's not the problem here. The problem is coming back up from the being on the location. How
that what you're saying is not computing because
oh my God.
they beamed down to the planet outside of the place where the villains are there, and then they had to be ready to have a quick beam out. There's some kind of security thing in place.
Because they were picking up an additional person. And they were picking up a group, like they needed to teleport a group of people away quickly. They teleported him down straight away just outside of the club. It's like she could have teleported down just outside of the club.
No, what I look at what Funky Moin's saying in the chat here. The enhancer thing was to create like a tunnel through whatever was going to prevent them from beaming out. That's what the little device was for. And presumably you would also need that to get back in.
No, you don't need to get it. No, this doesn't make any sense. A pattern enhancer helps you teleport away from a location to the transporter, not using the thing to transport from the pattern
maybe you're getting hung up on what it's called because they describe it earlier in the episode that this little device was to create an open tunnel so that they could beam out through whatever protective thing was in the way.
All right, well, let's drop it and move on because to me like whatever.
It's just for whatever case she has the thing, and so anyway, so Dr. Girardi is listening to Picard talking to Maddox, and this is where Picard learns that Soji is on the reclamation project, the Borg cube. Anyway, the interesting that there's nothing, like we don't see Soji or Narek or any of those characters in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Which I gotta say was actually like I didn't actually miss them.
No, yeah, me neither. This was way more interesting. Yeah, so then Captain Rios is like, are we going to talk about our stowaway? Well, Raffi's back on the ship, and Picard goes and knocks on her door, and she doesn't open, but he's like, well, welcome back.
Mm-hmm.
Then, so Dr. Girardi, after Picard leaves, she messes with whatever treatment Bruce Maddox is being given.
Now, this I had a major problem with this scene.
It sure came out of nowhere. So she kills him. The EMH activates because it detects that he's in medical distress.
No, it detects she's in medical distress.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Psychological distress.
She's in psychological distress. Then he sees that that Dr. Maddox is in medical distress. And he's like, well, he's going to die if you don't reinstate the treatment. And then she just deactivates the EMH.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I gotta say, especially on this shot, look at this shot. This is how low budget their sets are. That's just a concrete floor with like 4 walls that have been built up really hastily. There's even a seam line down at the bottom on the far side. There's a single bed in it, and there's like the bed, then there's some lights, there's some holographic things that were added in afterwards. There's so much lens flare. going on, and there's just one little like cart thing off to the right. That's it. This is seriously, this is a low budget show. And I mean, you
Well, it
really see
is,
it on
yeah.
stuff like this. Like most of what they're adding in here is post effects. There's so many post effects going in here, and this is why they're using lens flares. They're using lens flares to hide the fact that this is an incredibly low budget set, and that this is an incredibly like cheap thing. So
Yeah, the lens flares really bugged me this episode. I was like, come on. Like,
but
why?
the thing that bugged me the most in this, I mean, this is just me noticing this stuff. The thing that bugged me the most here is they have an EMH who can apparently detect when she's in psychological stress, and how somebody in psychological stress would then be allowed to or have the ability to turn off medical treatment for somebody else, and how the EMH can't override this, or how the EMH could be turned off by her. Like, again, this is one of these scenarios and situations where, I mean, again, if I had a ship and I had some EMHs, I'd be like, okay, EMH, you can ignore the request for somebody to turn you off if they're trying to kill somebody else. I mean, it's just for some reason, like the whether he's both doctors, like he seems to be both psychologist and medical, or maybe he switched. I wasn't really sure at that moment, but for whatever reason, the fact that he can't, like, medical hologram to bridge, somebody here is trying to murder somebody. The fact that he can't do that, the fact that he can't like notify, the fact that there's no security EMH, and trust me, if there's a security EMH that shows up later and starts like kicking ass, I am going to be so peeved. I'm going to be so peeved at this because they didn't have one standing by ready in case somebody on the ship was murdering somebody else. Like again, it just does not, this does not compute. Like it just really doesn't work. Like the doctor, even in his most basic format on Voyager, was far smarter than this, and far more capable than this, and apparently the technology has not gone anywhere else. I do like, however, I do like that they whenever the EMH just showed up, it goes, please state the nature of your medical emergency. Like that, the fact that that's still in there, it's like, yes, that's good, but completely overshadowed by this enormous plot hole of like, hi, I'm just going to end your medical treatment here. Medical EMH shows up, who's supposed to treat this stuff, goes, all right, well, do you need help? No? Okay, well, I guess I'm shutting down. It's like the fact that he's okay with this and that he cannot report this to somebody else is mind-boggling.
He might be able to report it. We haven't seen the aftermath of this yet. She shut him down, and until he's activated again, he can't say anything. So maybe in the next episode she does something to try and delete the EMH, or prevent him from saying anything. I see what you're saying about the security problems here. I definitely see that. Yeah, I guess you could say it's an oversight on Captain Rios' part. But it does seem to, like, on the one hand, I see why the EMH would be programmed that it can't override the command of a human, or the what a human person is doing. That's a safety measure in itself, because then if you have one that goes rogue, that's a big problem.
I think in this particular scenario, I would have programmed this. It's like, okay, EMH, you're programmed to turn off whenever somebody gives you the command. However, if that person's doing something that is considered to be illegal or harmful to somebody else on the crew, you will immediately reactivate or send a message or form a comm link with the location, or maybe put it on the main viewer or something, so that somebody knows what's going on here. It's like one of my big problems with Voyager is that they and again, some people say that this is crossing the line. I don't think it is. on Voyager and on other starships, they have the ability the computer tracks every single crew member at all times wherever they go, and then they have a log of that. So somebody's like, when did this person leave the ship? And the computer's like, they left the ship 43 minutes ago. It's like, you're in the middle of space, not near any planets, ships, or anything else. Somebody leaves the ship, and it takes until somebody notices that they're gone before, like, the computer's like, oh, hey, Captain, I know that we're in the middle of an expanse and there's nothing around that anybody could ever get to, but just so you know, somebody just left the ship. I thought you should know that because, probably extraordinarily dangerous. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, maybe it's not, like, I could see that it's not programmed to do that by default, but you'd think after, with so much, they're having so much trouble in the Delta Quadrant and people, things happening, you'd think they would say, okay, computer, notify me immediately anytime somebody leaves the ship. Yeah. No, I get that.
And it's stuff like this where it's like, hey, I'm running a ship by myself. It's entirely housed with holographic EMHs, or emergency holographic staff, basically. Hey guys, just so we're clear, if we're ever invaded, taken over, or if somebody's ever murdering somebody else on the ship, I need to know ASAP. As in, like, that second that this is happening, you need to, like, red alert. This is going on in sickbay. You need to do that.
It's possible the EMH hadn't recognized that she was intentionally killing him quite yet when she deactivated the EMH.
But again, it's like stupidity. When you go to somebody in a doctor's office or like in a hospital, and you accidentally pull one of the machines, there's an alarm that goes off in 3 separate stations.
Right, but we are separate. Like, we are separate from Starfleet protocols and medical protocols. But I mean, at the same time, I see your point. Like, it doesn't make sense that there isn't some kind of alarm going off or something.
Yeah. So, and this is one of these scenarios where like either he's an incompetent pilot and owner of the ship, or there's this major security flaw in something that's literally like they've literally gone on a mission. And again, how Picard doesn't, like, this is his entire mission has been to find this dude, which I honestly thought would take a lot longer, but whatever. And I'm really disappointed because I had a theory that they were like, this whole thing was like slowly moving towards the salvation of Data. With Bruce Maddox being offed like this, to me it feels like that they're not they're no longer going in this direction, which is really, really disappointing to me. I'm so sad. So sad.
Well,
that one song.
Maybe. I mean, it could be. I don't know. I don't think that possibility is completely out the window.
Yeah,
but
maybe not. But at any rate, again, it's like how Picard didn't say, like, EMH, I want you to monitor his condition at all times, and if there's any change in his system, in his condition, notify me immediately. In fact, he has said this before on numerous occasions in the past when he was commanding the Enterprise. He said, monitor this constantly. If there's any change, notify me. I think that's actually like something that he says like at least 8 times in the series. How he doesn't say that here is completely beyond me. Just so much. And it's not like this isn't like she's a Tal Shiar agent who's been preparing this for the whole time that she's been on the ship. And she's like been ready to make this happen at any moment. No. For whatever reason, she just like okay, he's just like, okay, walking away. No, I'm gonna have some tea and then find out that the dude who I came to save is now dead.
Well, he doesn't suspect her at this point. He doesn't suspect.
Well, he should suspect anything. He's working with an agency that's older and more sinister than the Tal Shiar. It's like, at some point, I would have assumed that there would have been spies or double agents everywhere on the ship.
Yeah, except I mean like, she's not she's again going back to the theory that this all her change of intention happened when she had that meeting with Commodore O. Commodore O probably... So I'm thinking what happened is she showed Jurati some stuff and convinced Jurati that, okay, whatever Maddox and Picard are doing is wrong and evil. And then she's probably given the order, kill Maddox, whatever, the first opportunity you get, off the guy, as if Picard finds him. And then, we'll take care of your legal trouble and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, maybe she's not even trying to hide, I don't think she's going to get away with it. It seems like she doesn't have the technical expertise to, keep the AMH from blabbing or to cover her fingerprints. Maybe she's done her job. Maybe she's done what the moles in Starfleet have commanded her to do, and...
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so I'm like, here's if you're ever going out on an adventure to save somebody or to do anything, if you're going into a conflict zone or if you're going into any kind of a dangerous situation, there's this dude called there's a general called James Mattis. He has this quote which is pretty famous actually. And this is something that if you're ever going on an adventure to save somebody's life or to to do something that's dangerous, this is something you need to live by. And that is, be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everybody you meet. This is something that Picard should have known by now. And something that again, if you're going into the scenario, you need to prepare yourself to do whatever it takes to make sure that your mission is completed.
Except he doesn't think like that. That would be out of character for him to think like that.
Which is why he's a terrible, terrible leader when it comes to military and problem stuff. How many people have died under his command? He's
not some kind of. He's not some kind of insurgent. He's not some kind of.
No, this isn't an insurgent. This is a general. James Mattis is a general in the U.S. Army. He's not an insurgent. He's but
I'm saying Picard is not some kind of.
I'm just making the correlation that they're both old people who have served very long time in both peace and war, and this is his general operating procedure. He's got another quote here, which is really awesome. I come in peace. I didn't bring artillery, but I am pleading with you, with tears in my eyes. If you blank with me, I will kill you all. Another just amazing quote. I didn't bring artillery. I didn't plan on killing you, but I want you to know, with tears in my eyes, if you screw with us, we will destroy you completely. You would be surprised how well this works in pretty much every situation. So it's just something that
well, sure, but what works? I mean, this is the whole idea behind Starfleet and the Prime Directive. What works is not what's morally right always, and that's what. Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. It's balancing what works with what's moral. That's the whole conflict of Star Trek and the Prime Directive. And I mean, there's definitely a lot of food for debate there. Anyway, whatever. She's he does not. I don't think she's gonna get away with it. I think they're going to know immediately at the beginning of the next episode that he was murdered. If not, there'd better be a darn good explanation as to how Jurati covered her tracks. Knowing her character, she barely knows how to work a transporter. So, yeah, how on earth she would do that is beyond me. But, anyway, she's upset by it, though. It's not like she wanted to kill Maddox. She's, like I said earlier, she's doing what she feels she has to do for whatever reason. So yeah, few things in this episode that a reason to kind of shake your head, but overall, I give this one a 4 laughing Picards out of 5. I really liked it. I really liked the whole sequence on the Free Cloud, the cyberpunk city. I really liked the character moments with the Sorry about that. I really liked all the character moments with, them preparing to get ready to do their mission, that kind of a thing. I really liked seeing Picard being dramatic. The stuff with Elnor not really understanding what was going on. Like, there was just so much to like about this episode. This twist at the end with Dr. Girardi, I'm still digesting it, and we'll see how it goes. We'll have to see over the next few episodes. We're halfway through the series now, the first season.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. What do you give this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 too. Under protest because there were several things that were just kind of difficult in the episode. I'm probably not going to ever really rewatch this whole episode just due to the beginning there bit, and it was kind of painful. But yeah, just generally, it's like, again, this isn't regular Star Trek, but maybe this is the thing that leads back to getting regular Star Trek, because they've got to answer for some of those problems that some of those things that happened. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Overall, like, I enjoyed it. I gave last week's episode, I think I gave it a 2. Like, it had been slowly declining for me. This episode kind of brought it back for me, so I really. I'm happy for that. We'll see what happens in the second half of the first season. We'll continue doing this series on Fridays after the new episodes air. So yeah, if you're listening live, please do slam that like button if you're appreciating this content. Tell us in the comments if you agree or disagree, why we're crazy, why we're not crazy, whatever your opinion is. We're fine with disagreement.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, and
we like arguing on this one. This is probably one of the best argumentative.
Yes, it's definitely more relaxed than our normal podcast, and we can argue about stupid things like what that stupid little piece of technology did. But yeah, this has been fun. It's not our normal content, but I know there's a few people who are tuning into this regularly and appreciating it. So thank you for that. Slam that like button, leave comments, and don't forget we have our normal podcast on Saturday coming up really soon. So yeah, come on back for that, where we talk about all of the gaming news of the week. Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you all again very soon.